betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people you love most. I learned this the hard way when the family I trusted tried to take away everything I built. I was 23 when I started my first company. I had no investors, no fancy office, and no guarantee of success. What I did had was a stubborn belief in my idea and the determination to make it work. I worked out of a tiny rented space. My desk was an old wooden table. My chair wobbled, and my laptop was secondhand. But I didn't care. I poured my soul into building something meaningful. Day after day, I lived off instant noodles and endless cups of coffee. Nights blurred into mornings. Friends stopped calling because I was always too busy. But I didn't mind. Every line of code, every small win, felt like proof that I was moving closer to something bigger. Slowly, things started to change. Clients came in. Projects grew. I hired my first employee, then a second, then a team. Within a few years, the startup wasn't small anymore. It was a recognized company with a reputation for delivering results. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had truly made it. But if you ask my parents, the real star of the family wasn't me. It was my younger sister, Sarah. Sarah was 4 years younger than me. Smart, ambitious, and charming. While I had been burning myself out to keep the business alive, she had gone to one of the top business schools in the country. My parents adored her. They loved to tell everyone, "Our Sarah's going to change the world." At family gatherings, the conversation always circled back to her achievements, her grades, her internships, her bright future. And me? I was the older brother who just ran a company. It didn't matter that I had built it from nothing. It didn't matter that my company was paying my bills and giving jobs to people. Compared to Sarah's shining academic success, I always felt like the shadow in the room. At first, I didn't mind. I was proud of her. She was my sister, after all, and deep down I thought, one day they'll see what I created. What I didn't know back then was that the very company I had bled for would become the center of the worst betrayal of my life. When Sarah graduated, my parents were over the moon. They organized a big family dinner, praising her every step of the way. I sat there quietly, happy for her, but also reminded of how little recognition I ever got. That night, my father pulled me aside. "You should bring Sarah into your company," he said. "She's got the brains for business, and with your technical skills, the two of you would be unstoppable." I hesitated. It wasn't that I didn't trust Sarah, but the company was my baby. I had built it brick by brick. The thought of handing over control, even partially, made me uneasy. But then I thought, she's family. Maybe this could actually be a good thing. So, a few weeks later, Sarah joined the company. At first, things were good. She was full of fresh ideas, and I won't lie, some of them worked. She was confident, polished, and knew how to speak the corporate language that I often stumble with. Clients loved her. Employees admired her. And honestly, I was proud. It felt like maybe, just maybe, my parents were right. But then the shift began. Meetings that used to be led by me suddenly became her stage. She would talk over me, cutting my points short, then spinning them into her own. At first, I laughed it off. She's just excited, I told myself. She'll settle down. But she didn't. Soon, she was making decisions without consulting me, hiring people I didn't approve, changing workflows that had taken me years to refine, redesigning systems because it looked more professional. The worst part? My team started siding with her. She had this way of making people feel heard, even when she was leading them exactly where she wanted. Slowly, the employees who had been loyal to me started looking at her as the real leader. One afternoon, I overheard two managers talking outside my office. "She's got vision," one said. "Honestly, I think she'd make a better CEO than him," the other replied. That stung. It was like someone had stabbed me in the chest. I wanted to confront Sarah, but every time I tried, she brushed it off. "Relax, big brother," she'd say with a smile. "We're on the same team." But I could feel it. The company I had poured my soul into was slipping out of my hands. And then came the night everything changed. It was a Sunday evening when my parents invited me and Sarah over for dinner. Nothing unusual. We often had family meals together. But something felt off that night. The table was set a little too neatly. My parents were dressed a little too formally. And Sarah had that smug little smile that always meant she knew something I didn't. We ate in silence for a while, the clinking of forks on plates filling the room. I tried to make small talk, but my parents kept exchanging glances with Sarah. Finally, my mother cleared her throat. "We've been thinking," she said softly, "about the company." I froze. My father jumped in. "Son, you've done a wonderful job building it. Truly. But now it's time to look ahead. The future." I frowned. "What do you mean?" My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. "We believe it's time for Sarah to take over leadership. She's younger, more connected, and has the modern business training you never had." For a moment, I thought I had misheard. "Take over?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Yes," my father said firmly. "You can stay involved, of course. But Sarah should be the CEO moving forward. We've already spoken with her about it." I looked at Sarah. She didn't deny it. She didn't even look guilty. She just smiled sweetly, like this had all been part of her plan. My chest tightened. This was my company. My dream. My sweat. My sleepless nights. My everything. And here they were, calmly suggesting I hand it all over like a toy. I tried to reason with them. "Dad, Mom, you don't understand. This company exists because I built it from nothing. Sarah's only been here for a year. She doesn't even know the full picture." But they were unmoved. My father's voice was final. "Son, sometimes you have to accept that someone else is better suited for leadership. Sarah is the future." I felt the blood drain from my face. I wasn't just hurt. I was betrayed. Sarah leaned forward, her tone soft but sharp. "Don't take it personally, big brother. This is what's best for the company." That was the moment I knew. They weren't going to give me a choice. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of winning. Right there, at that dinner table, I made a silent promise to myself. If they wanted to take my company, I would make sure they got nothing. I went home that night and didn't sleep. My mind raced. I felt hollow and furious. I paced the apartment until dawn. Then I started to plan. I knew one thing for sure. I wanted a clean break. I didn't want a messy fight in court. I didn't want to burn bridges that couldn't be rebuilt. I wanted control. I wanted my future back. First, I took stock. What did I truly own? What was tied to the company legally? And what was tied to me personally? Which clients had signed with the company because of me? Which employees followed me because of loyalty, not just a paycheck? I made lists, long ones. I checked contracts I had signed years ago. I reviewed vendor agreements. I reread emails. I sat with our finance lead and quietly asked questions. Nothing dramatic, just careful conversations that didn't raise alarms. Then I started reconnecting. I met clients for coffee. I didn't say a word about leaving. I listened. I asked what they valued most. I reminded them subtly about the projects we had done together and how we solved problems. I let them speak. I reminded them who had been at the center of those solutions. Some of them smiled and said, "We've always trusted you." Others asked, "Are you okay? You seem different lately." I kept my answers vague. I didn't want to give Sarah or my parents any clue. With employees, I did the same. I kept things normal at work. I didn't complain in the open. I held regular meetings and kept morale steady. But behind the scenes, I had honest talks with those I trusted most. I told them how I saw the future and where I wanted to take it. I listened to their fears. I promised to protect the team and their jobs first. I also contacted a lawyer. I needed things above board. I wanted protection, not tricks. I told the lawyer everything. The family dinner, the plan to move leadership to Sarah, and my desire to start fresh without breaking laws or burning people. The lawyer advised caution. He helped me set up a new legal entity that was clean and above reproach. I avoided shady moves. I did not forge signatures. I did not falsify documents. I did not lie to clients. I used relationships and honest offers. That mattered to me. Revenge felt sweeter when it wasn't petty or illegal. Then I began shifting value. Slowly and legally, I proposed new service lines to key clients. I suggested pilot projects that the clients loved. I offered to lead those pilots personally. The work was real. The contracts were simple. They were signed with the knowledge and consent of the clients. At the same time, I negotiated with a few senior employees. I offered stock options in the new company. I explained the vision. I promised continuity. They agreed to join if and when I moved. They signed consulting agreements with me personally in the short term, legal and transparent. No theft, no deception. There were tense moments. Sarah changed workflow and blamed me when something didn't work. She started a public-facing branding push that ignored the team's input. Clients noticed. One of them called me privately and said, "We prefer how things were handled before." I listened. I promised to keep delivering. The weeks turned into months. I prepared quietly. I placed code repositories under my personal accounts when those were part of my intellectual property. I ensured prototypes and product roadmaps I had authored were saved and documented. I set up backups. I kept receipts, emails, and meeting notes, paper trails for the right reasons. On a Sunday afternoon, I filed the paperwork for the new company. It was a clean, simple entity with a clear mission. The lawyer filed for the name. I opened a bank account. I transferred no funds from the old company. I used my savings and small loans from friends who trusted me. Nothing underhanded. I chose the right moment. Timing mattered. I had everything lined up. The clients who wanted to move, the employees ready to transition, and the new contract signed and dated. I also had a plan for communications. I wrote an announcement that was careful and professional. It wouldn't be a smear. It would be a fact. Then the day came. I walked into the office like any normal morning. I greeted everyone. I ran through the scheduled meetings. I didn't show panic or anger. People expected me to be shaken. I gave no hint. At 2 p.m., I went to the main conference room. I asked for 15 minutes of everyone's time. Sarah was there, smiling. My parents were not. Thankfully, they were busy elsewhere, confident the takeover was a done deal. I stood up and spoke calmly. "I've decided to move on," I said. My voice was steady. "I'm resigning as CEO." There was a beat of silence. Sarah's smile froze. "What? But—" I continued. "I'm not leaving empty-handed. I've started a new company. I've accepted several project commitments there. I've spoken with clients and team members who want to move with me. I'll be taking those projects and the people who are part of them." Sarah's face changed from surprise to anger to disbelief. "You can't do that," she said. "This is company property." I answered carefully. "Everything I'm taking is based on consent. These clients sign new contracts. These team members sign consulting agreements. There's nothing illegal here." She glanced at the others, looking for allies. Some faces were blank. Some looked down. A few looked at her with pity. The team had already known in their hearts where their loyalty lay. She lashed out. "You betrayed us. You should have told us." I felt a strange calm. "You betrayed me first," I said softly. "You chose them over me. You chose a title over the person who built this." The room split into murmurs. Phones started buzzing with messages. My lawyer called to confirm details. Clients sent short emails. We're aligned with the new plan. A senior developer stood and said, "I'm coming with him." Sarah stormed out. She slammed the door on the way. Her footsteps echoed down the corridor. After the dust settled, I collected my things. I said goodbye to those who chose to stay. I hugged those who chose to leave with me. The hugs were real. Tears were real. Pain was real. Outside, my phone buzzed. My mother called. Her voice trembled. "Why?" "We were trying to help." I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. I drove away. That night, I moved into a small office that would be the home of the new company. It was modest. It was mine. I opened the door and looked around. There were boxes to unpack. There were names to call. There was work to do. I slept for a few hours and then woke early. The first pilot project started that morning. We worked hard and fast. We delivered. The clients were happy. Meanwhile, the old company sputtered. Projects stalled. Key developers left. Clients waited. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a quiet satisfaction. I had reclaimed my future without letting bitterness consume me. I had chosen to build, not to destroy. But the story was not over. There were consequences. There were conversations I hadn't had. There were feelings to process. There was a family that felt betrayed, some legitimately, some by my choices. I had won the company. I had lost certain comforts. I had traded familiar meals for late nights in a new office. I had taken back everything that mattered to me. Yet I knew the real test came next. Could I build something even stronger, and could I live with the cost? The weeks after my resignation were surreal. News spread fast. Clients called, employees whispered, and competitors circled like sharks. My old company, the one I had built from nothing, suddenly looked weak without its foundation. Sarah tried to hold it together. She pushed harder, working long hours, meeting clients, tried to show she could run things without me. At first, I almost respected her determination, but cracks started to show. The clients who stayed complained about missed deadlines. The employees who remained felt lost without leadership. Even vendors began hesitating, asking questions about unpaid invoices and delayed projects. Meanwhile, my new company grew faster than I expected. The core team I had brought with me was loyal and motivated. We had less red tape, more trust, and a clear vision. Every small success felt like validation. One morning, I walked into our new office, still small, still half-furnished, and saw my team laughing together, planning solutions. For the first time in months, I felt light. I thought about my family. My phone buzzed, often with calls from my parents. At first, I ignored them. Eventually, I picked up. My mother's voice cracked. "Son, we only wanted what was best. We thought Sarah could take things further. We didn't realize." There was silence. Then she whispered, "We lost you." I didn't know what to say. I still loved them, but the wound was deep. They had chosen Sarah over me. Not once, but for years. This wasn't about business anymore. It was about trust. Sarah eventually called too. Her voice was sharp at first. "You blindsided us. You ruined everything." But a week later, her tone softened. "You were right," she admitted quietly. "I thought I could handle it. I thought they were right about me. But it's not easy, is it?" For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. Sarah wasn't evil. She was ambitious, caught in the glow of my parents' praise, desperate to prove herself. She didn't see how much it cost me until it was too late. That night, sitting alone in my new office, I realized something important. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about freedom. I hadn't just taken back my company. I had taken back my voice, my independence, my right to define who I was. The lesson was simple, but it burned into me. Never let anyone else decide your worth. And never hand over what you built just because someone says they deserve it more. The twist? Even after everything, I still love my family. I don't hate them. I don't wish them harm. But I'll never let them control me again. Betrayal may have changed our bond forever, but it also gave me the strength to stand alone. And that strength is priceless. If I were in this situation, here's what I would have done. I would protect my work, but also try to have one final honest talk with my family before leaving. Sometimes people don't realize the damage they cause until it's too late. But if betrayal is repeated, then walking away is the only choice. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.